Welcome back to Political Exchange, where we're in conversation with Gauteng Premier Nomvula Mokonyane. Premier, just before the break, we were talking about the opportunities for local business in keying in. But one of the problems that retards economic growth is the question of government capacity and corruption. You've recently had to reshuffle your cabinet in the wake of a scandal that hit one of your MECs. Now, what is government doing to actually ensure clean governance, to beat back corruption, and to ensure that businesses, especially tender-linked processes, are above board and doesn't retard economic growth?
We've made a commitment. One of our commitments is that on a quarterly basis, we would want to present before the residents of Gauteng who has been given business for what, and the time frames of our own agreements. Secondly, we've put tightly now the issue around contract management as something that is being driven in the Department of Finance, which is now called the Department of Treasury, who must actually scrutinize every contract that is above 100 million for every department. But even with the smaller departments, we are also looking as to how we benefit SMMEs, and we also improve on the turnaround time for payment of goods and services, because Gauteng has had a bad reputation, especially with our health department. But
particularly when it comes to the issue of paying service providers.
You know, Karima, one of the things that has been a problem, it's around contract management. It's also around cash flow management.
What do you think are the roots of those problems?
Part of the roots is that in many of our instances, we had outsourced the management of our contracts and stuff. We'll have what is called a project management unit. Some people outside there who must collect all this information, bring it back to government, and in return, the more they delay, the more they get commissioned. And we've actually taken out that middleman. We are now strengthening the offices of the Chief Financial Officer, and we take the Chief Financial Officer and the Accounting Officer, the HOD, to be now directly responsible, because that was one of our major challenges. Because the more you delay payment, the more then the PMU actually gets a commission.
But also small business suffer. They have cash flow problems.
Part of what has also been a problem, sometimes there's an obsession to pay 100 million rather than to pay Mamkize 10,000 rands. So part of what we are now doing in terms of contract management is to make sure that Treasury, through its own running of payments, it has two categories. It has categories for those that are between 500 and a million, and those that are below. And then it then has the major projects that are millions, that are managed by direct departments, and monitors to say you can't have a run that continuously omits to pay 4,000 rands to somebody who has provided a catering function for you. So we are putting those things. We have also established in Gauteng something that is not statutory, but we have made it mandatory, something that we call the Premier's Budget Council, where the Premier, the MEC for Finance, and one MEC, and in this instance we have brought one of the smaller departments, MEC Mazibuko, to be part of the budget committee, where we interrogate quarterly the reports of every department. We're looking at financial management, we're looking at the payments, we're looking at the empowerment, and then we bring the head of Treasury together with accounting officers to then come and say, how do you give empowerment opportunities to individuals and communities? We have also challenged this notion that it is only through tenders that you can do government business. We're going very big and strong around the use of cooperatives as part of empowerment in the province. But
Premier, let me come in here quickly. The Auditor General recently released his report, and the picture that he painted was very bleak. For example, the state of municipalities were in a bad state. None of the metros received clean audits, for example. You have certain challenges in the province. I appreciate the fact that you've put in place mechanisms, but there is a sense that some of these people are just recycled. You can be in one place the one day, do wrong, and then get recycled and go to another department. How do we prevent a bad apple from going everywhere?
You know, we've turned around things. Never
Give
mind
me some examples.
Never mind the issues of municipalities. Remember, health has been in ICU in this province. They've just received their audit report for 2011.
But you've just appointed a brand new health MEC with no experience.
But remember, there was an MEC before, and that very MEC, the audit report that we have, actually has given them, they've received a qualified report from a disclaimer with only 4 matters of emphasis.
So there is progress.
There is progress. We've worked out on a turnaround strategy. We've since appointed a new chief financial officer who is a qualified accountant, who is now going to be working together with the department. 2, we've also not only been looking at the issues of financial management, but we've also looked at issues of value for money. Notwithstanding the issues in Gauteng, it is only the city of Johannesburg. And yes, and we believe that it could have done better. But if you look at as to where it was before, there has been an improvement. We are now providing support to them. What we must all now strengthen, it's to check whether there's been value for money, and whether even if people can account in terms of the receipts and the financial balances, whether the money has indeed made an impact in people's lives. That's another thing that we're looking at. As we speak in this province now, there's not a single department that has received a disclaimer. But even with the report of the AG, I take the criticism that has come. But I also believe, Karima, part of what we're not also looking at is the future of municipalities. There are municipalities that are not viable.
Yes.
And so we are of the view as this province.
Are you arguing for a different funding model?
We're not even a different funding model. As this province, we're also looking at a different structure and system of local government. As we speak now, we have incorporated Motsweding into the city of Tshwane. And that Motsweding has been one of our weakest municipalities that did not have skills, that did not have a revenue base. It has now been incorporated into Tshwane. What we are now engaging ourselves and Tshwane together with National Treasury is how do we help Tshwane to manage this transition, because it has not come with opportunities, it has come with liabilities. How do we deal with that? As we speak now, we are working with the West Rand District in making sure that we create a unicity. We're tired of having many municipalities that are not going to be effective. We're working towards a single system of local government as part of long term. So for the West Rand, we are now going to work on a single municipality as compared to us working with this kind of a district system, because it is not viable. Even with us in Gauteng, together with our municipalities, we're even saying for a small province like ours, can we afford to continue having these big metros and a province? What is our long term? As part of Vision 2055, we believe that possibly Gauteng can be a city region as compared to being a province. And it must be treated different, because the Chinese experience speaks volumes. The American experience
I wanted to talk
volumes.
about best practices in terms of the city region approach. There's often reference to places like Hong Kong, for example, very viable. So are you saying,
Shanghai,
are you saying, Premier, that we could see a different system of governance, that we could see a kind of mega city rather than a province in Gauteng? That's certainly news. Is that what 2055 is envisioning?
In fact, the indicators are exactly that we have to move beyond that. We must think out of the box, so that then we're not locked into positions and political office and stuff. We must look at development, and the development patterns indicate that, Karima, that Gauteng is better poised to be a city region, a mega city that can directly account to central government, that can be resourced differently. There is no province in this country, I can dare say even in this continent or anywhere, that has got 4 central hospitals, with one as large as Bara. I always say Bara is a village on its own. So you need to look at that. How you fund health in Gauteng. You can't fund it like you fund another province. Within migration, also we're also taking up, as part of this issue around a city region, is that whilst nationally we've looked at rural development, it is also a serious mistake that when the world has come to appreciate that urbanization is now a reality, we do not actually look at how do we then give support to a highly urbanized province, and yet we give more dominance on the development of rural provinces, correctly so. But remember, the movement of individuals and a knowledge-based economy, people are becoming smarter and smarter and smarter, and they would want to move to a smart province like this one.
Premier, in terms of just this idea of policy and developing policy that keeps track with how rapidly things are changing in the world, on the one hand, we need policy consistency for long-term planning, for strategic planning, but we also need to renew mandates quite regularly and refresh the mandates. So how does one balance, policy consistency on the one one hand, long-term vision, 20, 30-year visions, with the need to constantly change your political leadership and freshen that mandate. Doesn't the two bump up against each other?
In fact, the two have to complement each other. What you need is institutional memory and knowledge that can then permeate into new ideas, innovation, and so forth. So you definitely need to have those who will appreciate where we come from, and we definitely need to also make sure that those who are then put into public office are those who understand what the demands of the current period are. But critical in that is for us never to refuse and resist modernizing the way that we interact and account to our people. I do not believe that it has been sustainable, Karima, to have 5-year mandates. I believe in a long-term mandate, and hence you need a 2055 kind of a mandate that becomes everybody's plan. You win elections, here is a plan.
No matter who's in office.
Exactly. You come in, you develop this, because successful economies and countries have actually done it that way. China has moved that way. Even your deployment, you then deploy your best, and you put the resources where you know that this is the goose that lays the golden egg. You don't leave it to chance. So politically, we need to engage those things from my party on those issues, but also administratively. Part of what we're doing as part of the partnership with China in Gauteng, we're taking even our senior civil servants to interact with the public administrators in China to understand what kind of a cadre do you need for public service if you really want to drive your mandate through development.
Premier, thank you so much for joining us. Lots to talk about, but we've got to leave it there.
Thank you very much.
That's been our program for tonight. Tune in again on Monday night for another edition of Political Exchange. I'm Karima Brown. Goodbye.